All right, it's me, Russ, and the Chevy Sonic needs a water pump, so that's what I'm going to do today here in my garage. Mother Nature garage, right? That would be an interesting t-shirt, wouldn't it? Mother Nature garage. Little wrench, weed, flower, I don't know. I know, I said weed. I know what you're thinking. Knock it off. Anyway, we're gonna do this. Now, the video I made just before this was a diagnosis of this problem. If you have fluid leaking out of the side of the engine over here, or the front of the engine, whatever you want to call it, then it's pretty clear that you need a water pump. This thing was making a squealing noise, which could be one of two things. It could be a belt, it could be a bearing on something else, or it could be the turbocharger, because this is the turbocharged 1.4 liter. So you might want to watch that diagnosis video first. Again, I'm not a mechanic. You do these at your own risk, but I've diagnosed this problem myself, and now I shall spend however long it takes to replace the water pump in this here vehicle, because I'm 85% sure that's the problem. And here we go. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is take off the air intake here, and then I'm going to remove this, which is pretty easy. You got 2 Torx screws. Remove the mass airflow sensor there. Yeah, at least I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Anyway, and now the second thing I'm gonna do, which should have been the first thing, is to remove the battery cables. It's not important right now, but once you get in here and you want to zero out the computer and stuff like that. So we're gonna go ahead and remove the battery cables and then tackle taking the air intake out and out of the way. Some things you're gonna need are, I got some wrenches in socket. I love my colored sockets. You know this if you watch some of my videos. E sockets, E-sicle, and I got E wrenches as well. 2 jacks, one to hold the vehicle up and one to hold up the engine as we're going to pull the motor mounts from the passenger side here. Also, if you don't have 2 jacks, just wanted to let you know you could also use a jack stand. Jack stands are helpful if you have 1 jack. So there you go. Those are some things you're going to need. First thing we do, as always, is remove battery cables. So yes, 10 millimeter. Not on every vehicle. These are custom electronics for inside of my Chevy Sonic. There we go. And next we take out the air intake. Removing that. Keeping my bolts over here. Of course, I removed that screw, unscrewed this. So yes, just 2 screws, this puppy comes out. Try to get it out of the way. And here's the fun part. And I don't just mean that because it's difficult, I mean it because it's fun. There's that, and that, and this. So the air intake, see that right there? And these little holes, like there's no bolts, which is beautiful. I don't know if there's supposed to be a bolt there, but there isn't. This is awesome. See that? This whole thing just comes right out. Boom. Piece of cake. Just like that. So next, I'm gonna remove this hose, get that out of the way. I should just probably remove this hose as well. And water pump is right there behind the motor mounts, which is awesome, right? So now, before we start yanking these bolts out, I get my other jack. Now, if you don't have two jacks, you could just use a jack stand. Of course, jack up the car on one side and then use a jack stand. Use a jack stand to do the rest. So this one, we're going to put this underneath the engine in order to hold the engine up because we're pulling off the motor mounts. And I put a piece of wood underneath it just to hold it up. Now you don't want to you don't want to jack it up at all. You just want to give it a little tension and hold it in place. So next, it's time to take this off. I took the rest of that hose off. And we'll get this out of the way, and there might be some fluid leakage. So if you're in a garage, you might want to grab something to catch the antifreeze if any comes out. All right, so we removed that. A little bit of fluid came out. It's okay. A lot of fluid will come out when the water pump comes out. So anyway, gonna loosen these, this, those. See that? See that? Those, these ones on the side. That'll be fun. But yeah, all right. Gonna have to remove these bolts. It looks like. Here we go. All right, and after those bolts are removed, it just comes right out of there, just like that. And then we remove that one. That one comes out now. For that, I'm using the 15mm box wrench because I don't have a socket. I guess I could use a socket. I don't know. And it's probably easier to remove that one first because that one's easier to get to. So hardest to get to is the one that'll give you trouble. So do that one first. So got that one out, and now it's on to that one. So yes, there's one more bolt down there. You can see it. It's underneath at the point, and 15mm. Let's do it. Let's get it. Let's get her done. All right. So now we've got this thing loose. Does it come all the way out? That's a good question. I don't know, but it's back far enough where I can reach the water pump, it appears. So let's go for it. Doesn't need to be all the way out, right? All right, so I got this puppy off, just kind of gave it a whoop like that, and it came off. Also the bracket, that came off pretty easy actually. I just kind of turned it up and shook it, and the bolts fell down there. And then, yeah, so I'm gonna have to put it back together like that, it looks like. But that's all well and good, which is peachy. So we have this strange tensioner, which I'll have to figure out. But anyway, that's on the next operation. Let me worry about this now. Now it looks like from here it had been leaking or something. You see some residue up here that's coming out of there and below and around. I don't know. But taking the water pump out. That's what we're doing. Looks like it has some corrosion, like it's lost some fluid. So again, using the vice grip to remove the hose, and then I'll start on these with that. All right, and this, it appears, needs to come off this thing here. This doohickey there, right there. So try not to leak all over. So yeah, there's that, and that needs to come out. Quick tip from Russ of the future. All these bolts, when you remove this water pump, all the bolts are different sizes. I just found that out the hard way. So in order to save yourself some time and some heartache, make sure you mark when you pull out the water pump, make sure you mark which ones go where. So which bolts go where when you pull them out, so that you know when you put it back in that everything's gonna be cool. All right, so I pulled that little thing out, and as a precaution, I suggest stuff a rag right there so you don't want to drop any bolts or nuts or water or anything in there. It's the turbocharger, man. So now I'm trying to get to those bolts. Hold on the coolant. Here's an idea for you to keep track of the bolts. This is my old one, and if you see carefully, I have numbered all of the holes. 1, 2, 3 from the top, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Boom, you could screen capture that. Use it as a way to keep track of the bolts, because you don't, there's like 3 different sizes of bolts, and you want to put them all back in the same holes. So important. So I'm getting it off. Now I've got all the bolts off. It won't come out. Am I missing one? I got that one, there's that one up there, there's that one down there. There's a bunch of them. Those bolts there went to the front of that down there with a little thermostat in it. And all of this does what it does. So, not sure why it won't come off. So I'm gonna look up the part. Yeah, it's dark, you know why? Because that took me forever. That right there, this little guy here, took me forever to get those bolts out. It took a while, man. It was not fun, but I got them. Day 2. Last night I stopped doing the recording because it was raining and it got dark. But you can always drag lights out in the dark, right? But now it's just raining, and it's still raining, but it's not raining as hard as it was last night. So living in the Seattle area, that's what happens. Now, next step, now that I've removed all the bolts and using this camera again to make sure all the bolts are removed. You do not want to leave a bolt in there when you try and pry this thing off, because you could damage your engine block and bend a screw or a bolt, and that would not be good. You want to keep all the bolts and screws handy. It has these handy little tabs right here, and I imagine that's for prying off the water pump. I'm gonna try that. All right, and I'm gonna try this, putting it in the hose area here, pulling it. It comes right off. Look at that. Boom. And there's a water pump. Beautiful. Now, what we have here, it's a small victory because I couldn't get that off last night, but I was worried that I still had a bolt in it. So I actually looked up. Here's the, there you go, check that out. Push pause if you want to. No, I don't know. As far as this vehicle is concerned, here's how many bolts are in it. If you have the Chevy Sonic with the smaller water pump, good for you. I don't know why things always have to be difficult for me, but this is the water pump I have, and that's how many bolts are in it. So last night I got online and looked up the part and made sure that I had every bolt out of it before I pried it off. I was worried that it still had a bolt in it. But now, it's off, which is a beautiful thing. And here's, again, this is the thermostat. Look at that thermostat. This is not an easy car to change a thermostat on. Again, this part here gave me the most trouble. Unhooking that, and I imagine hooking it back in will give me equal trouble. So we have to scrape all that off, and I get to go try and find a water pump. So Parts Geek has this part for $36.61. Parts Geek. Yeah, I looked it up on some other sites. I also found out some more information about this part. So I wanted to show you this. I'm using Rock Auto's parts catalog because they have a great way of looking up the part. You just go click on Chevy, right, Chevy, Sonic, 1.4 liter turbocharged, the one I have, and you go down to cooling system, water pump. There it is. Boom. This is not the part, is it? Alright, that's not my water pump. But see, that's the thing about calling and getting the part number. So the reason I got this one, no, the other one, anyway, the one you just saw, was because I looked up the part number by calling the dealership. They will run your VIN. You can give them your VIN number, the last 6 or 8 digits of your VIN number, and they can tell you the exact part that belongs in your car. Even though mine's a 2014, it has a 2013 engine. This is also the same engine that's in the Chevy Cruze 1.4 liter turbo. So you Chevy Cruze people out there, it's the same engine, same job, same water pump. I'll show you. Boom, we'll go back to Sonic, minus that one. If you go to Cruze, where is it? It is up here. Cruze, 1.4 liter turbocharged, and cooling system, and water pump. And there it is. Ha! See? There's our part. That's the one right there. Anyway, and how much is this one? $37.89. Lifetime warranty? I don't know. I don't know. Parts Geek is another great one that you can check out to look up parts and get your parts. Again, I wouldn't rely so much on the catalogs, just because even at like AutoZone or O'Reilly or whatever parts store you go to, they can have the same kind of catalog that I just showed you here, and it's not always that reliable. It's not always accurate. So again, you'll save yourself a lot of heartache by going to the dealership, giving them your VIN number, and getting the correct part the first time. So yes, another thing to do is to replace this tensioner. It's like 15 bucks, and it's kind of important that it gets replaced because the bearings in it can go bad. And that's one thing I learned if you watch any of my videos with the Caravan I had. Now I had a Dodge Caravan that had 400. When I finally retired it, and I still have it, and it still runs, but it's got 430,000 miles on it. So, done a lot of work like this, and one thing I neglected was that tensioner, and the tensioner went bad, you know? And so I had to dig in. This is so much work to dig in there to replace such a stupid little part that I should have replaced when I did the water pump or I did the alternator, right? So, yeah, so the little tensioner pulley is something it doesn't cost a lot of money, and it can save you in the long run in the future. Oh yeah. Hail. It's hailing. That's great. And also, yes, just so you know, you don't have to replace the whole assembly. You can just replace this. This is the thing that's got the little bearing pack in it that tends to go bad. So, all right, I did it. Got my water pump. There's my old water pump. Tensioner, belt, scraper. Water pump came with the gasket. And the next thing to do is to scrape off the old gasket, which is right there. All right, so you live, you learn. This gasket, I pried underneath it, and it's like a metal. The gasket comes off. The old gasket must come off. Yes. So that's done. All right, is it all scraped off? I'm trying to see here, because it's hard to see from this angle. So it looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Maybe that little edge might need to be trimmed off, but other than that, looks pretty clean. All of the orange is pretty much gone. Yes. Yes, a break in the clouds. And it's only been a few minutes later, so perfect time to put on the high temp silicone gasket seal. Everything's pretty clean, looks good, and it's dry, stopped raining. Perfect time to put this stuff on. All right, so I'm gonna give it one more wipe clean. I actually sucked out to get this fluid out down here. You see that? Yeah, fluid. I actually used a paper towel to kind of suck out some of that juice, dry as possible. We want this so to kind of lower the water level in that. And all of this is pretty damn clean, pretty dang dry. Keeping it all nice and dry. Anyway, so opening the container. Whoa, yeah, I dropped it. Great. And I found it. Nah, I'm using this stuff. It's not product placement. All right. Like that. There we go. I use the end to pop the seal. So broke the seal, cutting off the tip just a bit. All right, yep. And then you want to go. This stuff is great because the applicator here. Go all the way down and around the holes. You want to make sure you go all the way around the holes like that. Follow the outline. Hopefully gravity doesn't take too much of this stuff. It takes 24 hours for this stuff to seal. Yes, I know. I was trying to get out of that. I'm like, isn't there stuff that seals faster? I don't have 24 hours. I gotta get to work, man. I drive an Uber. I drive a Lyft, man. I cannot wait 24 hours. So they said, sorry, buddy. This high temp stuff, it's gonna take 24 hours. So, you get the idea, right? That's how we put that stuff on. Like that. All right, and now I have added the gasket on this side. So yeah, I did the same thing I did there, here, and then I laid the gasket over it. Now, the tricky part, putting it on the engine, lining up the bolts. All right, here we go. All right, overhead is ready. Taking a couple of these small bolts, because you kind of got to do this fairly quickly too. You can't just let it sit around too long. And shove these bolts through here. Try not to touch the gasket like I just did. That one there. Another one of these small guys. As you can see how it's already trying to come apart. So you can put one here maybe one over here. You just want to make sure that all of the holes line up. So you don't want it to move around once you've stuck it on the engine. So that's why I put those screws in there like that. And then like this. And then, oh dear God, line up that with that. So you got this thermostat thing over here. And now I'm lining it up in the holes. Trying to get it to thread. I probably should have grabbed a socket. Grab a socket. In hindsight. This one lined up well. On the bottom. I think. Oh dear God. Please. Prayer is always a good thing. Alright. Lining up the hole on the bottom. This is all coming apart. Alright, well, I'm off to a great start. So, we grab a socket. Socket's always handy. And, see, these are all different sizes. This one need to go in there, that one in there. I don't know. Oh, that's great. I should have marked those. That might be helpful too, to mark where these go before you get started. Anyway, put that in the before you get started notes. Line that one up there. Oh dear God. Lining up this one here. This is definitely the high pressure round. There we go. That bolt there, this bolt here. And we just got to get them to thread just a little bit. This guy on the bottom. And the thread. And I dropped the bolt. That's nice. There we go. There we go. So this one here. Try and line that up. With the hole. You get a top one, you get a bottom one. You get the thing threaded. That's how we like to do it. That one's threaded. I believe. Not. This one is threaded. So that's how you do it. You get the top one, bottom one threaded, and then you can put the rest in, piece of cake. It's like this, see? Tightening a bolt. See? That's what you do. Tighten them all down, just like that. Finger tighten them, and then you know what to do next. That's what you do. All right, now that I have all the bolts in their holes, in their selected places, because they're all different sizes, I found which ones go where. I'm going to go ahead and tighten them down. You just kind of finger tighten them until you get them in there, and then you tighten them down, and then you bolt the thing on, you tighten it down. Yeah, you get the idea. All right, I got the light out here now in the darkness, and I'm attempting to put this back together. So this has like an O-ring deal inside of it, so it doesn't need a gasket. So just gonna stick it back together. See how that goes. So yes, it goes on here like this. It's got this nice little flange, and then that screw, you get the idea. I might need to run for cover. Alright, so I got this far. that thing's tightened down. That is put together right. It's not, I haven't tightened these bolts down yet. Another thing to think about is to remember before you put this on, to tighten the, snug tighten the bolts on the water pump. I'm doing this in January, so, you know, temperatures make everything expand and contract. So you want to make sure that those bolts are not too tight. And you don't want to reef on them, all right? You don't want to get them way tight, because if you do, you could strip one out. I mean, this is an aluminum engine block, I'm pretty sure, so yeah, you don't want to strip out a bolt in there. That would be really bad news. So, there you go. Hello. It's day 3. Day 3. Yesterday, had to nail down parts, drive around, find them, so that took a lot of time. So last night I bolted this thing up. Haven't tightened them down yet, but I'm using my handy dandy strap wrench. So yes, now I've turned it around, and handy dandy strap wrench, which is cool because I don't even have to hold on to it. Hold on. Okay, so I had to kind of hold it in place there, but that's how I'm turning these bolts. So yes, now in the Seattle rain, we put on the serpentine belt on the Chevy Sonic. Are you ready? I know I am. All right, so now I realize my camera angles may be off, but I'm gonna try this. Laying it on the top of the engine, face down. Let's try that. So, again, putting this on there. I've got it all up and around. Pulling this back. And there she goes. See that? That's so simple. Let's see what kind of mess over here. Alright, now try it again. Like that. Oh, there we go. That's better. That is much better. Let's see. Yep. Nice. Belt is on. So yes, my next move is to put this, I just slip this hose back over onto there. Yeah, in order to, well, you know, put the hose back on the water pump. Alright, so now I moved this hose out of the way last night. And I don't know if I recorded that part, but I did. Move this hose, it came off of here, and then I moved it up and out. There's a little bracket that holds it in place. It's right here. See that? Little bracket just held down with bolts, and that holds the hose in place. But yeah, so I'm gonna bolt that down first, right? Put the hose all right, and as the rain starts to come down, oh, it's hail. That's awesome. I'm gonna put on the tensioner. Hail. Mother Nature's garage. That's how it goes. Alright, so that's tightened up and on, and now it's time to put that puppy on. Alright, so I put this back on. It's just a little, it just slides in and out. So pop that back together. Put that hose back on there. This hose is on the water pump. That's all put back together. And now, time to put back in the... Alright, now it's a good idea to leave these 2 bolts in as you try and put this thing into place. Yeah, so here we go. And then back to cinching these puppies down with a 15mm. But before I do that, check it out. Father-in-law. Yeah, there we go. Upside down. Doesn't get more Seattle than that, right? It's brought me a latte. Father-in-law. It's awesome. This job just keeps getting more Seattle every minute with the rain and the weather and the latte. It's good. So yes, for those of you who are keeping score at home, 15 millimeters is 5/8. Also, pretty close anyway. So now this bottom bolt here is what I'm after. And it looks like I'm going to have to, because I couldn't get my stubby socket in there, I'm going to have to tighten that down with a wrench. A 5/8 wrench, or a 15 millimeter wrench, whatever one's handy. Thanks for playing. Baggie of bolts. See, I like to keep bolts separate for every operation in a plastic bag. It's just neater like that. I know, whatever. So that goes, that'll go there. Next operation, next step in this thing, let's keep that dry. I'll have to get dirty. Is to lower the engine. Lowering the engine. There we go. Something like that. Let's try that. Use your hand a little bit to line the bolts up, which is going to be fun. Or use a pry bar. Oh. But yeah, once you get it lined up. So again, not the best camera angle for this, but you can see how the engine moves around. I've got these bolts threaded. Before I thread these, I haven't put a nut or a bolt in that one yet. So I'm kind of waiting to get this centered. It's those two bolts sticking up. Keep it centered. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be threaded. Let's get this sucker all together. And then we want to get a bolt. This shorter bolt without the washer. See that? That goes over here. So now I've taken the jack and lowered the engine all the way after I got these bolts cinched down just a little. They're not tight yet, but once I let off on the jack, that hole lined up, and I can put this bolt right back in. See that? Piece of cake. All right, so now when I'm putting this thing back in, I like to start there. See that down there? Right there, and you put that in there, in the male, female to male thing, and then you scoot those in. After that's in the boot, that little boot thing, then you scoot those in there. Try that. Right, now I've put all this back together, and I just kind of cinch up with a screwdriver, the hose clamps. I'm drying off because it's so wet out here. I'm drying off the sensor, which I probably should have just removed from right there. And hopefully the sensor isn't damaged from the wet. But it does get wet, so putting that and back. Got the air intake all put back together. And guess what? Achievement unlocked, right? Achievement unlocked. It's done. And I have to wait until like 4 or 5 o'clock for that silicone to adhere before I can start the engine. And then that'll be the moment of truth. All right, so in the last operation, I tightened down my battery cables with the wrench there, and that is the last operation. Whoa, it's not the last operation. I still have to add fluid, but I can't add fluid yet because it hasn't been 24 hours. I may wait 20 hours. That's probably close enough. But it's cold, so I want to make sure everything's sealed up, and that's how that goes. So, it will be the moment of truth. Will this episode be a comedy or a tragedy? Right? Because I just invested well over $100 in the water pump and the tensioner and the belt. So hopefully that's the problem. I'm still not sure if that's the problem, but we will soon find out, won't we? Stay tuned. All right, so it has been 24 hours for the silicone to set, and we add some pressed stone Deck's cool. That's what this car takes. It's time to load it up with some fluids. As I load me up with some fluids. Anyway, just have to pee that out later. But this is the part where we pour in. It's good to pour it from the side like this so you don't get the glug glug action. Side gives enough oxygen. You hear it going down. Into the engine compartment. Yes. Give it a minute. May need to start it first in order to get the water pump going to get the fluid in there. So this is it. Will this be a comedy or a tragedy? If this thing's still making that noise, that's not good. Not good at all. But it didn't really make it until it warmed up. But we shall see. Here we go, starting it up. Sounds good. Now let's see if it's drank any of that down. Oh, hush. Not yet. Oh no. What's that sound? It's something down there. I don't know what it is. I'm sure it's fine. It stopped. As long as it's not dripping fluid, it wouldn't be good. A little bit has gone down. Let's see what happens. May have to let it warm up a bit. That's kind of funky. I don't know what that is. I tightened all the motor mounts, okay. That's a weird sound right there. And I found out what that knocking was. This little rubber guy came off. It goes in that hole, it was just beaten. And it turned out a tragedy because I did all that work. But now you know how to do the water pump, right? But that's what happened. And there is the Sonic here at the Chevy dealer, and they're gonna diagnose it. So, I don't know, subscribe. Maybe you'll see what happens next. I'll keep you informed. But yeah, it's still making a noise, a nasty belt sounding noise. It wasn't the belt, and it wasn't the water pump. I know, I did all that work, but that's part of diagnosing, right? You gotta find out what the problem is. I did fix it. The car is fixed. It wasn't something catastrophic. That'll be my next video, so you can find out what that sound is on the next video I post. In the meantime, this water pump, there's nothing wrong with it. So if anybody wants to buy a water pump for a 1.4 liter turbo Chevy Sonic Cruze whatever, I got one. So it's got 60,000 miles on it, but it's nothing wrong with it.